So many of the Reddits people gave me to look into have to do with like supernatural stuff. There's one called Dimension Jumping. There's a whole forum about it. And it's about people who think that they can leap from their own lives into the life of themselves in an alternate reality under different circumstances.
Ooh.
And
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good.
And one of the techniques that they use to achieve this dimensional jumping is called the 2-cup approach. And so what you do is you take cold water and 2 cups, a couple pieces of paper and a pen, and you write on the piece of paper whatever the status quo in your life is. So like mine would be Taylor owns 0 Bitcoin. And I would tape that to the cup. And then on the other piece of paper, I'd write Taylor owns 1,000 Bitcoin because he got into it in 2011. And then I'd tape that to the other cup. And I fill the initial status quo cup with water. I drink all that water. Or no, I pour that water from the original cup into the new cup and then drink it out of the
witchcraft subreddit?
This is from a different and similar one.
All right. Sorry.
Also huge groups. And these people are even crazier than the witches because they will say things like, it's like Peter Popoff, kind of like evangelical shit almost, where it's like, you remember those commercials? You'd be like, Petey Popoff, he sold me Dasani water bottle that he blessed, and he told me, he said, pour that all over your bills, and then I did, and then the next day they was gone. Those bills was paid. They was gone. It's like that, except you drink water, and these people are like, I had high. One actual example was like I had high blood pressure. And I was worried about it. And so instead of losing weight and eating better, I wrote on the 2 cups that I wanted my blood pressure to go down. And then I went to the doctor the next day, and I didn't even think that I had leapt dimensions. And then I talked to the doctor, and he said, your blood pressure's down to 120. And he said, it was at 155 before. And then my mom and my doctor looked at me puzzled. And I said, look, right here on the blood pressure medicine container. And then I looked, and it said 130 was my starting amount. And so I had leapt into a reality where my blood pressure didn't get as bad.
So what this is a misconstrued point of view of the way that quantum entanglement works, I believe.
They were using silly shit like that on there too, yeah?
No, it's a real thing that's theorized.
Well, which one is it?
It's a real theory that a lot of astrophysicists support, and the idea is that there's even an app that'll do it for you.
What?
Just stick with me here. It's that the idea of making a binary decision creates an alternate reality in which the opposite was chosen.
Are you talking about sliding doors with Gwyneth Paltrow?
No.
Have you ever seen that movie? That's what it is.
That's interesting.
I want to sell an app that pretends to do this.
I want to make an app that's just Tinder for witches, warlocks, and Jedi. You can message them and be like, "You're getting very wet."
I want to hear Kyle explain more about.
Yeah,
I'm really struggling. I watched. I've
got a huge dick. You've got a huge dick.
I watched a video about this like last week. I've been watching a lot of stuff about string theory and quantum physics, and trying to understand it as best as I can. But the guy was explaining how this worked. I watched this like seven days ago or something like that. I'm trying to look for exactly what the deal is.
I'm along for the ride on this, Kyle, for sure, because I love to find out. Basically, there's a thing called, a long time ago, Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud did studies on...
It's the many worlds interpretation. That's what this is called. It's a interpretation of quantum mechanics that asserts that the universal wave function is objectively real and that there is no wave function collapse. It implies that all possible outcomes of a quantum measurement are physically realized in some world or universe. It's that the answer is both yes and no. It's a bit like Schrodinger's cat.
Mm-hmm. You know what it is? It's Avengers Endgame is what it is. Because when they go back in time, they change different timelines, because they even show the little diagram in the movie where they're basically, if you make a decision, it splits off and it forms its own timeline.
So is that how this guy's would work? One of the top posts on this is, I think I died in 2012 and jumped.
Oh,
The many
Into
worlds
a new
interpretation
reality.
implies that there is a very
Yeah.
large, perhaps infinite number of universes in which many. It is one of many. It is one of many multiverse hypotheses in physics and philosophy. It views time as a mini branch tree wherein each possible quantum outcome is realized. This is intended to resolve the correlation paradoxes of quantum theories, such as the EPR paradox and the Schrodinger's cat paradox, since every possible outcome of a quantum event exists in its own universe. And I think that the former is describing how particles, when observed, will move one way, and when not observed, will move another.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah.
There's the real question is, how do you go from one timeline to the other?
You don't.
Other than
That's
just drinking
nonsense.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, it sounds like you could just drink that cup of water and then you're there. That's it.
Well, I mean,
No,
I believe these 15,000 people in this
I
community.
think that I think the
Why-
actual like astrophysicists who are theorizing this are suggesting that by having a choice, a binary choice between the two, that you've created a branch where
Right.
where you didn't choose A, you chose B, and so B has created its own branched off universe.
But what happens if I go from B to A, Kyle? I want to
Yeah,
go
what
from B
happens
to A.
then?
What do you mean?
Let's say I took so I make the B decision, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going down that timeline, but I have a special power or a cup of water, let's say, that can take me back to A, and I can find out what's happening in A, and then choose to stay there or not.
I don't think that's I mean it's
That
just
might be.
I don't think that's the thing.
That might be a real thing. You never know.
You know, the
You
thing
never
I'm
know.
describing is a theory, and I think what the thing you're describing is a bunch of nonsense.
It's a movie starring Gwyneth Paltrow called Sliding Doors.
Called Gloop.